With Destiny 2 on the horizon, there is a lot of different expectations that different people want to have for this game. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys what I think Destiny 2 needs to have in order to be more successful and more enjoyable than the first one. Now, I just want to quickly mention that I was one of those players that ditched the original game like 6 months down the line. After coming back and giving it more tries after being disappointed when the game first launched, I just couldn't bring myself to keep on playing it. I will mention things that Destiny 2 needs to have that I think will bring those players that did ditch the game back, and players that still play the game today, they will still have a massive appreciation for it. Now, to start off is, I think, the most obvious is a story. Have a beginning, middle, and end. For Destiny 2, I hope that they just bring forward a story that might not have so much to connect with how it's left off, but just for the players that didn't really play the game, just give them a nice introduction. Take, for example, Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 did have a story that wasn't exactly, amazing, but it was a bit more of a character-focused game, where you cared about the characters and ended up just following them through the journey. If Destiny 2 was just to do something simple like that, I think it would be good. Now, the next thing is more enjoyable level design in the story. I think we all remember in the Destiny story that there was countless times where you had to do these horde-like missions, where you had to defend bases, defend your friends, or whichever. It just gave us the impression that they were just lacking in creativity on how to bring out these missions. So I hope that they can bring out some more unique things, like chase levels, or a vehicle level, not just to give us kind of a linear grind fest kind of thing like the first one kind of felt. And that brings me on to the next point, which is interesting characters. Destiny really lacked in its characters. There were many characters in the game, but they were never fully fleshed out. With the character you spend most of the time with in Destiny 1, the Ghost, never really seemed to have anything decent about him. He just seemed to feel like that useful little gadget that just followed you around a lot and never actually felt a connection between them. Now, another thing I think that the Destiny 1 story lacked in was the enemies, the darkness. They didn't represent enough background behind those factions. It wasn't really understandable. They just seemed like they were just these enemies that were just trying to kill you. They never had personalities or motivations of their own that we got to have a chance to explore a little bit in the game. It was just enemies that kind of tried to kill you. So I hope in Destiny 2 they give us a bit more of a background behind these enemies that we're fighting. Another thing about level design that I think needs to be improved on is the boss battles. Destiny had boss battles, but they all revolved around just being bullet sponges. And this is something that a lot of the games are starting to do now, and I find it really annoying that they seem to lack in the creativity to bring us some really intriguing boss battles. Making you just stay behind cover, then take a few shots, then get behind cover again, just doesn't seem fun at all. It doesn't seem to have any intensity to it. I feel like if the boss battles were made a bit more strategically, like perhaps luring them into traps that do more damage, or hitting weak spots on them, it would just make it a bit more intense. Next thing is the weapons. Now, the weapons had different variations where it had rare, exotic, legendary, all those kind of things. But unfortunately, the models were hardly different and felt different when they got to the legendaries especially. The exotics were their own unique look, but the legendaries as well didn't really seem to feel any better than the rares. As example, some of the models were exactly the same, they sounded the same, and they shot the same. They just seemed to have a bit more higher damage and stuff like that. So I hope that perhaps Destiny 2 can bring in a bit more uniqueness into separating its weapon variation, giving us perhaps different kind of unique skins and stuff like that that you can put on the weapon to make it feel like it is a bit more of a legendary weapon. Now, then this next thing is the thing I want the most. A ranked matchmaking competitive multiplayer. The original Destiny multiplayer was fun, I'm not going to lie, but it did revolve around who had the better gear. These higher levels had so much more unique gadgets and abilities that the other players could not counter at all. So with a ranked multiplayer, I think would be a great change of pace, because I think Destiny already kind of has that kind of unique feel to the game. It's not so fast, but it's not so slow at the same time. It's got the supercharged things, kind of like in Overwatch. And one thing I hope that they do as well that kind of is similar to Overwatch is that the supercharges in the original Destiny, when you supercharge it, such as the Golden Gun, or, well, I can't remember the names of it exactly, but there were some of them that were just completely ridiculous. Like, if you saw one, you were dead, kind of thing. I hope that they're a little more underpowered this time, because as soon as you kind of got it supercharged, you would just activate it and probably get 3-4 kills from it. Whereas like in Overwatch, you kind of had to wait for the right moment to use it, and if you used it at the right moment, you could have got maximum kills. But in the original Destiny, you kind of, as soon as it was ready, you would just activate it and just get a few kills. So I hope that they kind of balance it out a little bit, perhaps maybe give them a few counters, perhaps making them last less time perhaps. But if you're saying then that's what we should have for multiplayer, what about the gear and stuff that we get in the game? Is that ever going to come into effect? I think that the gear should come into effect in PvE. And I feel like Destiny 2 should do something similar to The Witcher 3 did. In The Witcher 3 you had story missions that required you to be a certain level cap before you could actually play it. I think that was mainly done to perhaps just like either encourage you to explore the rest of the world, or to just say to you, hey, you need to be this level to have a realistic chance of winning this level. Just make it kind of feel a bit more harder as well. And like, that's the thing that Destiny 2 should do as well, is perhaps maybe increase the difficulty the higher level you are in the game. Which is something kind of like the original did, but it hardly kind of felt that way because you had like obviously your better gear and stuff. Kind of just made it feel like you were playing like normal difficulty. Now, the final thing I want to mention is content, which I think is the most important thing for Destiny 2 to get right. Now, we've already heard that there is going to be an expansion pass, and it looks horrifically similar to the original, with expansion pass 1 and 2. We've got no names, they're just little pictures there at the moment. But I know the argument stands that Destiny expansion pass actually felt like an expansion pass, because both expansions had stories behind them, new gear and new maps and stuff like that. So it can be excused, but I've always banged on about paying for DLC is a bad thing anyway. But I hope that they bring out some free content now and then, bring out some new maps and new gear and stuff like that for players who can't afford to buy the season pass. Just give them something as well to work towards and hopefully enjoy themselves. Now, I want Destiny 2 to be good, I really do. Having mentioned all these things, if they could perhaps just bring some of those things, like the ones I want the most, like a competitive multiplayer, a good story, and just simply just more fun. But I'm not going to lie, I know exactly what happened 3 years ago with Destiny 1, and if it does the same thing again, then it's a bad move on their part, I'll say. There's an old saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Let's just keep that quote in our head, I suppose, as we go into Destiny 2. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have your own requests and expectations that I've left out, then leave them down in the comments. And I'll see you guys all again soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye.